This is porcelain. Look at the two-tone petals. Unbelievable. So you can see I have made a start. I've counted out the ranunculus corms that I would like to sow tomorrow into their bowls, but I'm not going to soak them until the morning. They only take a few hours. So I'll get up in the morning, before I have my cup of tea, I will fill these bowls up with water. The anemones, however, take longer to rehydrate. So I'm going to take the empty bowls and the packets into the house. And then tonight, before I go to bed, I will put the anemones in to soak. And then tomorrow, about lunchtime, everything should be rehydrated and ready to start at the same time. Got the blue and white and a pastel here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak one bag of each and then keep one bag of each so I can give you a comparison in the morning. So here's the blue and white going in. Don't forget your label, you won't remember. Here is the pastel. And wait till tomorrow morning, you will be astonished. There we go, what a difference. What a difference that has made. So these are the dehydrated corms, and this is after they've had a bath. And then now, ranunculus, they only need about 3 or 4 hours. So while I'm having my cup of tea, I've still got my slippers on. This is a good way to garden, isn't it? I'm going to put some ranunculus in a bowl of water. So just in case you've never seen them before, these are the ranunculus, and I'm just going to soak them in the same way as we did the anemones. It's now been about 3.5 hours, and it always takes me by surprise quite how much they transform once they've been rehydrated, no matter how fragile they were in their dehydrated state. It's very satisfying to see them come back to life, isn't it? Look at that. Fantastic. Oh, it's not very nice outside, is it? Oh, I'm glad I'm cosy in here. I might actually take some of my anemones and ranunculus back up to the house later to finish them there, and that's what you can do too. Now, most of the growing advice for anemones and ranunculus has already been recorded in the autumn, and much of the advice is the same. So I have whizzed to the front of my highlights queue. Anemones, ranunculus grow along, and also the 1 to 5 week grow along, where I literally show you what they look week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. And that will hopefully help you gauge how your corms are doing. Now, all I'm going to record today is the change. So the difference between the autumn started and when you're starting them now. Let's start with our anemones because they're ready. We have been soaking these overnight, and these are anemone corms. Now, they take longer to wake up than the ranunculus, but if you've been growing along with me since the autumn, you'll know that they're actually starting to flower. So although they take longer to wake up, they actually start to flower before the ranunculus do, so don't let that fool you. The video on 1 to 5 weeks will really help explain how much longer they take to wake up. Now, the trick is that they need to be kept moist, but not too wet that they rot before they've had a chance to start shooting. Now, when they rot, so you can see these corms are nice and firm, but when they rot, they squidge together and they look like they've got chewing gum in the middle. That means that the corm has been overwatered or left in compost that's too wet for too long, and they have rotted before they've had a chance to start growing. Now, you and I have very much a two-way conversation when it comes to our grow along, and because of that, because of the ways that you have managed to murder your anemone corms in the autumn, I've come up with an alternative way to get them started. They are going to need moving to the 15 cell trays, but this just might help a little bit. You can see I've got a little half tray here, and I filled it with compost. I'm going to actually put quite a bit of grit in it. You can also use vermiculite or perlite. I'll tell you what, let me turn the camera around, give you an overhead shot, and I can show you exactly what I'm going to suggest if you've had trouble with keeping your anemone corms alive. Okay, so I've got my horticultural grit and I've got my compost. So what we're going to do is just make it extra gritty. as a compost mix there.
I'll give it a rest.
He's just come in and spot my video. So you can see here my extra gritty compost mix, and I'm going to fill this half tray. Now I thought these half trays will be better for you because you'll be able to fit them indoors. Now we're going to pre-sprout the corms in this tray. I'm going to show you in a second. What you can do, what the professionals do, is they use pure vermiculite. They wet the vermiculite and then pre-sprout the corms in that. So you can do either, but just bear in mind you are going to have to move them later. So I'm just going to place my anemone corms in the compost. So they're not touching. So if any of them were to rot, the rot won't spread to the others. And the good thing about using compost is if you're not really quick, so if you use the vermiculite, it's got nothing in it. There's no nutrients whatsoever. So if you are a bit lax and you do leave it a few days once the roots have started to show, there is at least some nutrition in this compost mix that we've got here. So it buys you just that little bit more time. So can you see, they're not going to stay here for long. So all we literally want to do is keep them moist enough that they continue the waking up process, but not too wet that they start to rot. Look at him. It's like a satellite. It might look like little is going on, but below the soil surface, I assure you, it is all going on. Look at that. There we go. So I'm just going to cover them over with some more compost because we're just trying to keep the moisture in. So if you don't put a cover on them, they could dry out. And then I'm going to give this a quick overhead water and I'm going to allow them to drain. I'm going to give that water and then I'm going to allow it to drain because we want the compost just moist, not soaking wet. We do not want our seed trays to be dripping. And then I'm going to put a lid over the top. It's quite difficult doing it backwards. Is that right? There we are, but lid over the top. That will protect it from mice and rodents if you're going to pop it in the greenhouse. You might want to start them, pre-sprout them in the house, just be warned. These are cool weather plants, so if you put them in a sitting room with all the heating on, they won't wake up because they'll think it's summer and they will remain dormant. It's all covered in the previous video, so you can have a good old watch of those and also in the handbook. But if the soil temperature hits consistently 20 degrees, the corms will shut down or basically never wake up at all. Right, I think I'm going to go back up to the house because it's miserable down here, and I'm going to start the rest of my anemones and ranunculus indoors in my slippers with a cup of tea. If you want to do your ranunculus in the same way, you absolutely can, exactly the same as the anemones. Just be wary that they wake up an awful lot faster, so they'll need moving on swiftly. And frankly, sometimes it's just not worth it, is it? You might as well sow them properly in the first place and then you don't have to worry about moving them. But you've got all the facts, you've got all the science behind it. It's up to you. You can just make your own decisions. So there we go. That is 14 days from soaking. Can you see where both the roots and the shoots are coming from the top? So definitely legs down when you're planting them. I shall put him very carefully back in his pot. Now the tunnel is starting to look very tired. But that's okay because that's why we've got this batch out here in the garden.